Okay, so today we're going deep on a really, really dark case.
Yeah, this one's
We're talking Jeffrey Dahmer.
the Milwaukee Cannibal.
Right, and we've got a ton of stuff to go through here.
Yeah, we do.
Articles from Sotco Wikipedia,
Right.
timelines and details from biography.com,
Mm.
a transcript from the Generation Y YouTube channel,
Okay.
and even a Reddit discussion on people who feel sympathy for Dahmer.
That's a tough one.
It is.
It is a tough one.
So much material, so many disturbing details.
Yeah.
We're going to try to make sense of it all for you.
17 victims.
17 young men and boys.
Murdered between 1978 and 1991.
And not just murder.
Not just
The
murder.
necrophilia
The
cannibalism,
things he did with the body part.
it's just horrifying.
It's uniquely horrific.
And the legal side of it is interesting, too.
Wow.
I mean, he was diagnosed with personality and psychotic disorder.
but still found legally sane.
Sane enough to stand trial, convicted of 15 murders in Wisconsin.
One in Ohio.
Multiple life sentences.
Yeah, he was never getting out.
So how are we going to tackle all this?
Chronologically, I think,
Makes sense,
from his early fantasies and that first murder
right?
through the escalation at the Oxford apartments.
His capture, the aftermath, and the public perception.
All of it.
Okay, so early signs, first murder. Let's go back to when he was just a teenager,
16 years old.
fantasizing about attacking a jogger.
To sex.
And not just fantasizing.
He hid in the bushes with a baseball bat.
Waiting.
Waiting.
Killing, right?
Absolutely chilling. It
Yeah.
shows you the desire for control.
And dehumanizing the victim.
Reducing a person to an object.
Right. And then there were those weird pranks at high school.
Doing a Dahmer, they called it.
Sometimes even for money to buy alcohol.
Early sign of a problem, maybe.
Maybe. And definitely a lack of empathy, a distorted sense of boundaries.
Yeah, for sure.
Then June 1978,
Stephen Hicks.
his first victim,
Dahmer said he just didn't want Hicks to leave.
after drinking and talking,
Like it was no big deal. But he beat him with a dumbbell, strangled him.
dismembered the body, buried the remains.
And then, years later, he dug them up, crushed the bones, and scattered them.
Like he was trying to erase it all.
But you can't erase something like that.
No, you can't. Then there were those years he lived with his grandmother,
6 years in West Allis, Wisconsin.
drinking heavily, lots of run-ins with the police.
Public exposure at a state fair.
Then again in 1986,
10 months in jail.
and just a short time after getting out,
He molested a 13-year-old boy.
got 5 years probation, convinced the judge he needed therapy.
So many missed opportunities.
Right. Like the system just didn't see the monster he was becoming.
It's terrifying to think about.
Okay, so 1987 to 1991, this is where things get really bad.
The escalation, the Oxford apartments.
September 1987, Stephen Tuomi
Dahmer drugged him in a hotel.
said he didn't remember beating him.
But he took the body back to his grandmother's farm. Dismembered it
And kept the head.
for a week.
Oiled it, pulverized the skull.
That's a turning point.
Absolutely. It is March 1989, Anthony Lee Sears.
This is where he starts keeping body parts permanently.
The skull and the genitals.
They were found later in his apartment,
And then the move to the Oxford apartments.
May 1990,
He actually took Sears' mummified head and genitals with him.
to his new place.
That's so messed up.
It really is.
The apartment was cheap, close to work.
$300 a month.
And within a week, he killed again.
Raymond Smith
Lured him with the promise of $50 for sex.
drugged him, strangled him, spray painted his skull, and kept it.
It's like a horrifying ritual.
Luring, drugging, killing, preserving.
It's just so disturbing.
And then June 1990, Edward Warren Smith.
This one's interesting because Dahmer was actually upset that he messed up the preservation process.
He tried to freeze the skeleton and dry the skull in the oven, but it got destroyed.
And he felt rotten about it,
Rotten.
not about the murder.
No, about not getting to keep the body parts.
It shows how important those trophies were to him.
It was more than just killing at this point.
And then there was that weird incident where he accidentally drugged himself.
Yeah, May 1990.
Woke up and his guest had robbed him.
He told his probation officer about it.
But not the police.
This guy was on probation for sexual assault while actively committing murders.
It's mind-boggling.
The system failed in so many ways.
Okay, so then we have Ernest Marquez Miller,
September 1990,
a dance student. Dahmer kept his entire skeleton.
and froze parts of his body to eat later.
Cannibalism.
It's a horrifying reality.
Then David Courtney Thomas,
Same month.
lured with the promise of nude photos, drugged, strangled.
Even though Dahmer said he wasn't his type.
And he took Polaroids of the dismemberment.
Another level of depravity.
No remains were ever found.
Just gone.
Then April 1991, things get even stranger.
The zombie attempt.
Daryl Lindsay.
Dahmer drilled a hole in his skull, poured hydrochloric acid in.
Trying to create some kind of zombie?
It's like something out of a horror movie.
But Lindsay regained consciousness.
So Dahmer drugged him again and strangled him.
And then he skinned him.
Tried to preserve the skin.
It's just beyond comprehension.
The level of cruelty is just staggering.
Okay, May 1991, Tony Anthony Hughes
He was deaf.
communicated with notes.
Dahmer drugged him, injected acid into his skull, killed him,
Left the body for 3 days, then dismembered it.
photographed the whole thing.
Then kept the skull.
It's a recurring pattern.
A horrible, horrible pattern.
And then Conrack synthesymphone.
This one is just so tragic.
14 years old.
Drugged acid injected into his brain.
Found wandering naked and disoriented.
Neighbors called the police.
But Dahmer convinced them he was just drunk.
That he was his boyfriend.
The police actually returned him to Dahmer's apartment.
Can you believe that?
It's infuriating.
And of course, Dahmer killed him.
Injected him with more acid.
Kept his head in the freezer, dismembered the body.
The officers involved faced some consequences.
But they were reinstated later.
It's just another example of the system failing.
And a terrible injustice to Conrack and his family.
Absolutely.
And the murders just kept coming.
June and July 1991.
Matt Cleveland Turner.
Jeremiah Benjamin Weinberger.
Oliver Joseph Lacey.
And Joseph Arthur Breithoft.
All drugged, strangled, dismembered.
Body parts kept as trophies.
All the while, neighbors were complaining about the smells, the sounds.
Falling objects, a chainsaw.
Dahmer made excuses, spoiled food, dead fish.
But nobody really investigated.
Until Tracy Edwards.
July 1991,
He managed to escape.
he was Dahmer's final intended victim,
Dahmer handcuffed him.
but only got one wrist.
Then he pulled out a knife, told Edwards he was going to take pictures and eat his heart.
It's like a scene from a nightmare.
But Edwards kept his cool, pretended to be Dahmer's friend,
Waited for his chance.
punched Dahmer in the face and ran.
Flagged down a police car.
And that was it.
Dahmer was finally caught.
They found all the evidence in his apartment.
The Polaroids, the body parts, the tools.
It was a house of horrors.
And Dahmer admitted he would have kept killing if he hadn't been stopped.
It's terrifying to think about.
The ripple effects of these crimes are huge. Racial tensions in Milwaukee were already high.
And the way the police handled the synthesymphone case just made it worse.
People felt like the police didn't care about victims of color.
Like they weren't doing enough to find the missing men.
And Dahmer preyed on marginalized communities.
Exploited their vulnerabilities.
And the gay community in Milwaukee was very underground back then.
People used aliases,
It created an atmosphere of fear and distrust.
which Dahmer took advantage of.
And then there's the Oxford apartments.
Demolished in 1992.
The site is still vacant,
Like a scar on the city.
a reminder of the horrors that happened there.
Now let's talk about the Reddit thread.
People feeling sympathy for Dahmer,
It's a difficult topic.
especially with the Netflix series coming out.
People are fascinated by him,
Romanticizing him even.
which is so disturbing.
Most people are disgusted by him, of course,
They focus on the victims,
as they should.
but some try to understand his background.
The childhood neglect.
But understanding is not the same as condoning.
Of course not.
His actions were horrific no matter what,
And the way he's portrayed in the media,
often by attractive actors.
it can create a distorted view.
People forget the reality of his crimes.
They get caught up in the story.
Desensitized to the violence.
It's a dangerous trend.
Now, Dahmer was baptized in prison,
Talked to a pastor,
questioned whether living was a sin,
said he didn't believe in God, so he didn't see the point in changing his behavior.
a disturbing insight into his mind.
And then in 1994, he was killed in prison.
Bludgeoned to death by another inmate,
Christopher Scarver.
who said he targeted Dahmer because of his crimes.
Even in prison, people were horrified by what he had done.
His body was cremated, his brain was briefly studied, and then cremated too.
His possessions were auctioned off,
The whole thing just caused more pain and disgust.
and the fascination continues.
Books, films, documentaries.
It's a dark chapter in human history.
One that we can't seem to look away from.
So what have we learned from this deep dive?
That Jeffrey Dahmer was a monster.
A monster created by a complex mix of factors.
We've seen how his violence escalated.
Missed opportunities to stop him.
The devastating impact on his victims and their families.
The societal failures that allowed him to continue.
And the disturbing trend of sympathizing with a killer.
So where do we go from here?
I think we need to be careful about how we consume true crime.
Not let ourselves become desensitized.
And remember the victims.
Their lives, their stories.
We need to hold each other accountable.
Work to prevent future tragedies.
And understand that evil exists in the world.
But so does compassion and the will to fight back.
I think that's the most important takeaway from all of this.
For me, the question is, what can we learn from this darkness?
Without excusing it,
Without glorifying it.
what can we do to make sure something like this never happens again?
That's something for all of us to think about.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.